now I'd like to welcome Mathew Bowyer to MuscleSport TV. Matt, how are you today, sir?
Hey, Joe. Thanks for having me. I'm great, my man. Thank you.
No, pleasure is all mine, man. Matt, you've been all over the news, the sports section, YouTube. You're on so many different shows. And what I want to do, instead of getting and having you tell the background story, I'll just, preface it this with, if you don't know Matt's story, get your ass over to Amazon. My book just came in the mail today. I didn't know Amazon delivered on Labor Day.
I didn't either.
This on Monday. Ordered it said, a date of arrival today. And I was like, oh, shit, great. And we had the interview set up. So I didn't get a chance to read it, but I did look through it all. And you have a feature in Rolling Stone magazine that I read, which is, you had it on your site. It was a very in-depth, detailed feature that really spells out everything that went on with you and that is going to go on with you from October 10th is the big date. So if you don't know Matt's story, check out some of these videos that he's done. Buy the book. Check it out. You were great on Soft White Underbelly.
Thank you.
Michael Franchise, you were on him. Your wife was even on Soft White Underbelly. I even watched her interview. I thought it was fantastic. And the other guy who I really enjoyed, the one that you were on, what's his, where the heck?
Was it Brad Lee?
Yes. The guy
Brad Lee. Yeah.
Yes. That was a great interview. He did a couple of different type of questions that the other ones did. Long story short, we'll just make this, just like I said, if you want more details on it, because we're going to be getting into some good stuff here. Matt is he's a bookie, and one of his clients was Shohei Ohtani's former translator.
Right.
Ippei. How do you pronounce Ippei's last name?
Ippei Mizuhara.
Mizuhara?
Yeah, Mizuhara.
Okay. So Ippei he got fired by the Dodgers, but since Ohtani's been in America with the Angels and then later the Dodgers, Ippei came here as his translator. The very good friends, the best friends or whatever. I thought it was interesting, and it doesn't even matter. Who gives a fuck? With the interview you did with the other guy, you said that he brought up the relationship might be more than just friends. Okay, and maybe it fits a little more with the bank account accessibility.
Right.
But again, that's who gives a fuck. So that's neither here nor there. But I just thought it was an interesting point he brought up because it kind of shows you the type of relationship that these guys have, at least that we know in a public sense. Right. And Ippei is a degenerate gambler. He played crazy amounts of money, way over, I guess, his salary. And you started getting wire transfers from Shohei Ohtani's bank account.
Right.
So the speculation was Shohei Ohtani. Now, to your credit, you came right out and said you've never met Shohei, you never spoke to him, you've had no dealings with him at all on a one-on-one level.
Right.
Everything was through Ippei, all the talking, all the gambling, all the payments. Just because it went through Ohtani's account doesn't mean Ohtani had any knowledge of it. We could all speculate on it. Were they half-seas on it? Was he covering for Ohtani? The guy's doing what, like 4 years he pled out to?
Yeah, 57 months.
He's going away for a while. And listen, sports radio and sports podcasts just rife with rumors saying, he's got a big payday at the end. He's taking a bullet for his friend. Right. We could all speculate that. We don't know. But you came right out and said, hey, I don't know if he has any involvement because he never spoke to me. Everything came from his buddy. But the thing that really stuck out to me that you said in that interview was that no MLB investigators ever contacted you to even debrief you, to even find out any information at all about this. Is that still true to this day? Because the interview was a couple of weeks old, I think.
Yeah. So in truth, They never reached out to me at all. That's a fact. They did contact my attorney one time, and she declined to even talk to them. So they did actually reach out to her, but to me directly, nobody from MLB ever has. And I believe that was the only attempt whatsoever, was just through my attorney one time.
Now, did they contact her and say, we want to talk to him, we want to, maybe this would help his case? Did they try to float that out there?
Their contact was very simple. We want to discuss, with her to start and just have a conversation. And at that time, there was zero benefit or reason for her. And I don't know this to be true, but I don't think the federal government even wanted us to talk to them directly, because their position was talk to us and tell us everything first and foremost.
Yeah.
So I couldn't answer that question because I wasn't present, but she immediately declined to speak to them, of course, and hated all the conversations I've had, to be honest, in the media. But that's being said, I wanted to have some sort of narrative and voice on my side of the story.
Yeah, no, definitely. Reason why I asked you about that is because I'm sure you probably remember the whole thing with the Mitchell report with the steroids in MLB and all that.
Right.
Kirk Domsky, who was the supplier of most of these guys, he's actually a personal friend of mine. He actually wrote columns for MuscleSport magazine. I know Kirk through the other guy, Greg Valentino, I was telling you about. MLB is still contacting Kirk.
Wow.
To ask him questions about steroids and how they masking agents and stuff. Now, Kirk wrote a book. He never tried to hide it. He made a deal. He did some time. He lost a lot, but, that was part of the plea agreement.
Right.
And MLB wanted to get to the bottom of that steroid story, no matter how bad it made them look. They wanted to squash it and not like hide it, squash it where nobody does it anymore. Right. And I guess to a certain extent they've succeeded somewhat because it's not that big of a story.
Agreed.
When I had said this on my radio show about a month ago, I said once these Cleveland pitchers started to get in trouble with the prop bets, right, and NBA players with prop bets, I said within 5 years, all of this DraftKings, FanDuel, all of this stuff is going to be shut down because there's going to be a scandal of epic proportions with huge, big-name athletes. You don't even have to comment on it. I'm going to say it. It's my comment, not yours. I believe that MLB wants this under the rug. That's why they didn't really press to get you, where they could have worked with the feds and say, we want to find out what's going on in MLB because this is going to be a big problem. The biggest problem was their biggest star was the first fish. And they were like, oh, shit. So I've been doing sports writing for 21 years. Doesn't mean I know everything. I could be totally wrong. I think that this is all throughout, not just these stupid apps, but gambling. I mean, throughout sports. And we can go back and Bobby Lane, Lynn Dawson, Paul Hornig. I mean, these are names I'm sure you're very familiar with.
Right.
Who were involved. And it wasn't like they were approached. Okay, yeah, like the Boston College was approached by the guys that were connected to Jimmy Burke, and that was loosely in Goodfellas. They mentioned it for a second.
Right.
Talked about much more in the book Wise Guy that Henry Hill wrote with Nicholas Pileggi. Those guys were contacted. The Black Sox were contacted by people connected to Arnold Rothstein.
Right.
Going back to the 1877 Louisville Grays National League baseball team, they were contacted. But guys like Bobby Lane were just gamblers on their own. And he got into real debt, bad debt, with the Chicago outfit. And he had to pay up, or else he might not have been able to.
To walk. Yeah. Right.
Exactly.
Well, things are different back then. As you know, you didn't pay a bookmaker, especially on the East Coast in Chicago. It was handled very seriously, as you know.
Yeah. It was just, it was a lot of money that they owed, and Bobby Lane paid for it. And I have that whole curse of Bobby Lane thing that they talk about in Lions lore. They traded him. He had gotten arrested for DWI, and then they dropped the charges. So he had other things going on. He kept getting hurt and stuff. But he was probably traded because they thought maybe something was going to explode with the scandal. So those are like what I'm saying. Those are players that are actively looking to gamble.
Right.
And he wasn't throwing his own games as far as I remember.
Yeah, they just wanted to bet.
They were betting on the Super Bowl, some of these guys that they weren't even playing in.
Of course.
It was like the 62 Super Bowl. None of these players on these teams were in it. They just wanted some action on the game.
Sure.
So I feel that gambling is a big thing. It's in every community, every walk of life. So why wouldn't athletes be betting on it? And it doesn't mean that they're eating a game, throwing a game. I don't know what these prop bets with this stupid first pitch thing. To me, it's so ridiculous. I mean, as a bookie, when did you ever hear of prop bets before these apps came out?
I mean, prop bets were, they were around, but it was like a minimal, a very basic prop bet, a coin toss for the Super Bowl. I mean, they started getting, but it started getting more to the point, like you said, a ball or a strike. I mean, the reason for that is as these apps came out, they were able to monetize people who are so degenerate that they wanted action, because the world today, as you know, with TikTok and Instagram and the newspapers are gone, magazines are dying, TV's dying. Everybody wants instant gratification. So the sports books have created more props on things that are second by second, minute by minute, which of course is more profitable for them, because let's be real, the lines on props are going to be higher as far as the money line, and therefore it's harder to win. And at the same time, they're easier to rig or fix because it's one simple pitch. Whereas rigging a game or fixing a game it's gonna be a little bit harder, right? Somebody has to really do some things that are noticeable. But anyway, back to your question, the prop bets, they're just so relevant now. They're in every game, all throughout the game, every second. Even UFC fights, you can bet the over-unders and who's going to knock out who during the fight, and the line is changing every second.
As you're looking at the live betting lines and stuff like that. To me, it became as a guy I've liked to gamble over the years in my life, from teenager like you all the way up to into my 50s like you. We know fucking parlays and props are sucker bets. Why do you think they're giving them away on these sites? 50% profit boost. If you hit the 5-leg WNBA, people will take the bet, and they don't even. And I'll be the first one to admit, when I see that, I'm like, why not? I'll throw a couple on that. It's just too easy not to, Or if you get a 25% boost at the racetrack, I'm betting that racetrack that day on my DraftKings just because it's easy. Why not?
Yep.
I might I'll put an extra couple of bonus points, turn that into money, and lose it on another race. But really, these prop bets, I think, what they're doing is it's opening the eyes of possible players that wouldn't have thought about gambling before that. Now they don't want to really put their own name out there, so they might go to the bookie who's not on there.
Right.
Where they wouldn't have even thought about it in the first. I just think it's going to grow and grow, and it has grown. And I think in the 5-year period, that bubble is going to burst, and you're going to see big names in all sports falling because there's going to be no way to cover it up, or somebody's just they're going to want that headline, and they're going to put it. Somebody's going to roll on them and tell them what they want to hear. I definitely think that if Ohtani is innocent, I'm glad that they got rid of that. Nobody's talking about that anymore, under the presumption that he is innocent. But when these guys came to you, they were trying to get you to give up other people. Now, these were other people that you were involved with in your operation. of
Right.
the bookmaking operation. These were the guys, because I know you said you got the bank, so you had some friends of yours that had to have bank accounts where you
Yep.
were able to do work and all of that.
Of course.
So when they took the operation down, for lack of a better term, they had you, right?
Right.
You're the head. You were the top guy. They were trying to still get you to flip on people that were technically under you, quote unquote, right?
Well, in truth, when the feds came to me in October 5th of 2023, what the target really was and what they wanted was the casinos that were allowing bookmakers and anyone in the gray area to use Las Vegas and other casinos throughout the country to help facilitate movement of money, whether it's laundering through them, washing, whatever. And, the KYC rule, know your customer, SARS Act, all these things that the casinos were supposed to follow, most of them were looking the other way, turning a blind eye, because let's be honest, a lot of the gamblers that are coming into these casinos, for the most part, the bigger ones especially, are usually people that are in a gray area business, and that's a lot of their business. So I understand why they were looking the other way, because that's a lot of income for them. But the government was not happy with the fact that the casinos were turning a blind eye and not following all the rules that were implied. And so that's what kind of led this path. I mean, it started with a bookmaker getting busted in 2020. And when they went through his phone, which is what they do, like electronic devices, you get raided, they're going to grab everything. You're not ready for it. It's going to lead to a lot of other implications. And it led to a casino executive that was running Resorts World Casino that was friendly with this bookmaker. And there were some things going on there, as far as promo chips and, let's call it working together without working together. And that led into a much bigger investigation, which 3 years later, led to me and many other people that were going through Resorts World and gambling and, clearly not following the KYC on their end. And that's really the target, I believe, that's still going on in this case. But as you know, when people start getting grabbed and there's phones and electronics, it just opens Pandora's box for things that they found that weren't really known. And Shohei Ohtani, Ippei Mizuhara, playing through my website was not even known until later, and I never gave them up because they didn't ask, and the name Shohei Ohtani wasn't in my electronics, but Ippei Mizuhara was. But Ippei Mizuhara is not a well-known name at that time, especially. Yeah. So it's not like that was a red flag, like, oh my God, this is a baseball interpreter. They didn't even notice. And then when a ESPN reporter showed up at my house in January of 2024 saying that she has sources about Shohei Ohtani betting through my website, then I knew that was an oh shit moment for me. And that's when we decided to unfortunately have to go tell the federal government about Ippei Mizuhara, because they were going to put out the reports, and my attorneys thought it would be much better off for us to come tell them as opposed to ESPN. And that's what actually led them to, Shohei Ohtani in this whole case, which they did a really good job of well, let's be real, opening and closing. That was the fastest case in the history of the federal government to open and close. And we all know why that is. They wanted the golden child back on the field, which I'm happy happened, because assuming that he had nothing to do with this as far as gambling, which I believe he did not gamble, I still think there's a little big question mark about, did he know about it? Was he assisting as far as maybe financially? But, even that is nothing big. I mean, you could lend your friend money and help him out if he has a gambling problem. So to me, Shohei Ohtani is innocent. And to get him back on the field and to have him go 50-50 and win the World Series and get an MVP is truly magical that he was, overcoming that adversity. But the point is, this wasn't even about them to begin with. It just opened up more Pandora's box, and which, made my case much bigger. Clearly. Yeah.
Did the ESPN reporter ever divulge what source she had to even know that there was something going on there?
No, in fact, to her credit, she wouldn't budge at all. And I can say that she was very professional in that manner because, clearly she didn't sell anyone under the bus. and her information was pretty accurate, to be honest. I mean, her numbers were off. She thought it was like 4.5 million. Clearly, it was a lot more, and I wouldn't verify the number, but the federal government did because they did their homework and they had all the answers. So that was there's nothing you could argue there. When your electronics show everything, then there's nothing to argue at the end of the day. And you're not, one thing you can't do is lie to the federal government. You're just going to create a whole abundance of problems for whoever you are. Yeah.
Will you ever? Did you ever have your phone tapped or a pen registered to it? Did they ever have like an investigation before they went to your house?
Because this case is still going, I don't know that answer. I believe, truthfully, that they did not tap my phone. They didn't need to because when they grabbed it, everything's in a cloud nowadays, so they had everything anyway. But I don't know that answer. I don't believe they even needed to. I think that just grabbing my electronics, all the computers and everything, which, truly I had everything right in it. It wasn't like I deleted anything. So they had everything they needed. I was on a stick. My head was on a stick the minute they came. I pled guilty immediately. I never even argued with them. I never even claimed to not do anything because I knew, that was going to hurt me, and I knew they had me. So, which helped me because by cooperating with them in regards to pleading guilty and saving the government money and resources, and just being honest and telling them, I was a bookmaker, that was my operation. It actually saved them from, going down that rabbit hole, which in return, they were kind enough to make an agreement with me that they're not going to go after my agents and everybody below me, and I didn't have to worry about that because even though I wouldn't talk about people on my phone, they easily had information where they could go make life miserable for many people below me, and that's something I didn't want to see happen. Thank God it didn't.
Good. So by you owning up and saying this is what you did, it kind of helped out some of these other guys that you didn't want to see get any, hurt by any of this, which is noble of you. You took your fucking medicine like a man. And that's the way to do it. Now, I know, bring it back a little bit, you were saying with the know your clients and the whole thing with resorts. I know that's a thing with the bank. If you deposit more than $10,000, they have to notify. So casinos have that same threshold where they need to make some kind of notification. If you come in there and you want to play $10,001 on the fucking hand,
no question. They have to do a CTR to the IRS. Anything over 10,000 within 24 hours. The KYC is similar to banks, but they're definitely held to a strict responsibility. As an example, Joe, if you walk into a casino today and you bring $300,000 in cash and you deposit it, there's no chance that they're going to allow you to deposit that without explaining where you got it from. And if you can't, based on your income and your job prescription, then you're not going to be allowed to put the money in there. In fact, that's their obligation now. Clearly, you're going to notice that maybe about 4 years ago you wouldn't have that problem, but today you got no chance. Sadly, my name has changed it for everybody, and of course, I didn't want to be the reason for that. As you know, nobody wants the federal government to come raid their home. But the minute that happened, every casino panicked. And truth be told, most of the casinos kicked out every bookmaker they knew were bookmakers that they were allowing to come into the casinos before. They got rid of all of them. They immediately sent letters and said, you're not welcome without showing your income and your job and everything. They just completely protected themselves going forward because they didn't want the federal government to be in their business, hoping that they wouldn't come at them. And so I know a lot of people that were gambling at a very high level that all of a sudden weren't even allowed to gamble anymore.
They're all blacklisted now. They're in blacklist.
Exactly.
It seems that I'll use old and new Vegas, for lack of a better term. Old Vegas meaning when it was run by the non-corporations.
Yep.
And there was maybe some partners that were not on paper that maybe weren't up to total snuff, but the things were run fine. Then they switched to corporate and tried to make Vegas a fucking Disneyland.
Right.
I mean, I've been going to Vegas. The first time I went was, 1990 or something.
Sure.
Totally different animal. I mean,
yes. I mean,
fucking awesome.
it really is. I mean, listen, I sadly missed like the Frank Sinatra era because I'm 50. I'm a little too young for that, but I caught the tail end of it. So when I started going to Las Vegas, which, by the way, I was, I'm born in 75, so 1996. It was I went prior to that illegally, so to speak, snuck in a few times, gambled. But at 1996, when I was 21 years old, allowed to go, that's when I started going. Even then, it was completely amazing, like the service and the way you were treated, which I, again, missed kind of the mafia days completely. But I got a tail end of it. I got to see the whole different experience of when you walk into Las Vegas, like the movie Casino represents. They describe it very well, how he shows at the end, the very end of the movie. It's amazing. Excalibur, he shows like how corporate it is and how it's just so different. And he even describes it perfectly, how it's about arcades and this and that. Whereas before, it was run by the mob and the mafia for the most part, and the treatment and the service was impeccable, and it wasn't so bean counter Disneyland. It was run by real professionals, and you were treated based on who you are as a person, as opposed to, hey, it's corporation and what's the KYC and all that's happening now.
Yeah, I remember going to Vegas, playing Keno at 5 a.m, having steak and eggs for $4.99.
Yep. Yeah.
Obviously,
sure.
They're still for nothing on the floor. But I mean, it was just a totally different atmosphere.
Right.
What you had was places that you can get a great room for almost nothing. I didn't play hard, so I didn't get comp, but I would get for like $89-$90, you can go in a nice MGM even. Excalibur, Luxor. I mean, nice hotels. They weren't shit boxes. But these were before these monster hotels were built, and it just was more fun. We had
the atmosphere, the vibe. It felt so different. And to be honest with you, let me take it a step further. This is what I really miss the most. When I was gambling at 21 to 28-ish, let's call it that 7-year period, where I didn't have as much money as I did later in life, of course, but I was still gambling very high, bringing $100,000 for a young kid, because I was a commodity trader. I was making a lot of money, right? So at that level, I was not quite on the private jets and all that yet, but I was definitely one of their like mini whales, let's call it. Yeah. So if I was hungry and it was 2 a.m. and I said, the pit boss would walk around, do you need anything? Yeah, I'm hungry. He would literally just walk out of this area and walk me into a restaurant. There was no comp slip written. It was just walk into the manager and say, give him whatever you wanted. And that was it. There was no cost. I would tip the person, the waitress, and I'd leave. And nowadays, if you need to eat at a restaurant, they need a full, where's your player's card? How many points do you have? You got to charge it to your room, and then we'll comp it later, and it's a full, breakdown. There's no, let me just have a host write something down anymore. It's so different now. It's terrible.
Yeah, no, it totally fucking blows now in comparison. And it's basically anytime corporate or government agencies take something over. I use OTB as an example. I don't know how big these things were in other states and California where you live, but in New York, they were huge. Okay. And when I was a kid in the 70s, I mean, my father and all his friends hung out there and everything. It's over the years, now going back from when it first started, there's only a handful of them left now. They went bankrupt. They lost billions. How the fuck does a bookie lose billions of dollars?
Yeah.
They don't know how to fuck. They don't know how to run a fucking book.
Right.
It's disgusting. And it was just horse racing. It wasn't sports with all these stupid props and everything. So I still don't understand. Was there somebody fucking on the take in there? I mean, there was somebody fucking robbing them blind on the inside. It's almost impossible to say people won all of that money playing the ponies in OTB. I mean, are you familiar with them at all?
For starters, if a bookmaking operation or racetrack is run properly, there's zero chance they can lose. Zero. Yeah. I mean, absolutely zero, because at the end of the day, I'm no longer a bookmaker, obviously. I'm not in that business. But as of October 5th, 2023, from that day prior to that, I've never had a losing season in my life. And I've had losing 6 weeks or eras, let's call it. But I've never really lost money And the only time I could say that maybe I did was when I had I just booked over my head with one particular group, as I talked about in my book, and I just let these guys bet so much money that it, superseded my entire operation. But as far as in general, 95% of the people that were betting through me were losing over time, and that's because you cannot beat the juice, you can't beat the vig, and the only people that can beat it really are robots, algorithms, MIT professional sharp players that you could pick out in less than 5 minutes, really, because they're betting, some NC Wilmington in North Carolina that a normal Joe is not betting. And so really, if you run a book properly, you cannot lose. And a racetrack is even harder. I mean, at the end of the day, it's pari-mutuel wagering. And even if you're not running pari-mutuel, the horses are impossible over time. I just don't see how anyone could lose. So I really can't believe how poorly these things are run to watch people lose that kind of money in any operation.
And to me, the thing with Vegas is, like, a lot of people talk about it's a ghost town now since COVID, but I think it's more since this whole thing's going on where they have to, they can't have the clientele that.
Of course it is. Listen, Joe, you said it exactly, the bottom line. I got rated October 5th. My other friend sadly got rated in December. And the minute we were both no longer going to Resorts World, they were down 12% the next quarter. So 12% of their business was gone on 2 bookmakers. Then you fast forward. Now they got rid of everybody that they should have a long time ago, technically, by the government rules. And they're getting destroyed. They're losing every month, right? And then now look at all the other casinos who had to follow suit. Yeah, it's a ghost town because all gamblers, for the most part, are down drastically because, again, let's call it 20-30% of them are guys that are doing something in the gray area that cannot prove their income. And then now they're trying to make up for it by charging for parking. All these little additional things that you go out to a nightclub now, and it used to be, whatever, let's say $5,000. Now it's 10. If you want to go out to dinner, instead of being a $300 dinner, it's $700. I mean, everything is heightened in Las Vegas. It's one of the most expensive towns or cities to go now. The rooms are outrageous. Everything's very expensive because they're down in gambling. They've got to make it up somewhere else, and that's why they're struggling.
Yeah, and it used to be the cheapest town to go to. And I always used to say, if you're not a gambler and you go to Las Vegas, you're going to have a great time because you're going to go to a show. You're going to, even if you're just fucking around on the slots, you're going to get a couple of drinks for nothing from the girls, right? You're going to have a good time, and you're not going to lose your balls. You're not going to be all tied up, and that's. I listen. One of my funniest Vegas stories is I go every year, and you're into bodybuilding, and we're going to touch base a little bit about training and all of that after we talk about the sports stuff. I go every year for Mr. Olympia show. It's held in Vegas.
Okay. Sure.
Since 2008, since I opened up MuscleSport, I've been going. Outside of 2 years, they had it in Orlando due to COVID and things like that. They had to move it around. But it's been in Vegas for a really long time. And I've gone every year. And I really don't have time to gamble much because I'm working.
Right.
But I've seen over the years how the floor of the casinos have gotten scantier and it's less people there. So, and oddly enough, resorts just picked up the Olympia last year, and this year in October. Today's September 1st, so in 5 weeks or so, I should be headed down there again. And it's huge. It's beautiful. It's new, right? I mean, it has that big globe in the hallway. I mean, it's high-end shops, but it's like people can't afford the thing that made Vegas popular was anybody could go there with a couple of $100 and have a good time, and even if they lost it, so what? They ate for nothing, they drank for nothing, and they stood up all night and party their ass off. There's nothing else to do but party over there. But it's, to me, by them charging, I mean, we went going to restaurants last year getting crushed just to eat some after the show because we were hungry.
Right. And it's so expensive now. You know?
It's ridiculous, yeah. And it was like, our food was a little higher end. I'm a fucking, these and those guy. I don't need anything crazy. But
Right.
pretty much everything, the option you have there in most of those resorts and hotels and stuff, they're high-end places. They bang you over the head. Would you like to look at our menu? Especially, if you're drinking and gambling, you just want to go have a quick fucking burger or a steak and get out. And it just doesn't have that. It doesn't have that feel anymore, and it's changed. It's not coming back.
That's why the buffets are all gone, and like the old style Vegas of like just gamblers want to gamble, they go eat some steak and eggs, they get back on the tables, and now it's like a fine dining experience for $800, and you're gonna have all this this chef from wherever, which is. So obviously, when you're in Vegas, nowadays you're going to see Wolfgang Puck. It's not just some guy cooking up some steak and eggs for $3.99 and gets you right back on the tables. You got to have an expensive meal with a famous chef. Which again, there's nothing wrong with that. But let's have some of the old school stuff where you can bounce in and bounce out and not spend for the people that don't want to spend that kind of time and money. And that's lost in Vegas. And I mean, even downtown has even changed. I mean, it's not. I mean, there's some cheaper places, but man, it's really tough. And Vegas is beautiful. It's a great place to go and get away and have a adult become a kid again, per se. And sadly, it's lost a lot of lust, no question, in the last 5 years.
Yeah, that's funny you mentioned downtown, because I was going to ask you, has downtown or / old Las Vegas, have they fallen into the same trap? Maybe not as bad. They have to.
Yeah. Not as bad. Like there's for example, there's a big casino down there called Circa now, and it's a beautiful casino. They have the biggest sports book in the world, but that's the nicer casino down at them in Golden Nugget, and they are kind of like the the Wynn of that area. And then the other casinos obviously are still kind of older, a little more run down. And I think that still has at least a little bit of the old Vegas for the people that can't afford a $800 room night and maybe $800 dinners. Sadly, they're going to have to go downtown, which of course isn't nearly the same experience, but at least it gives you a little bit more of an old school vibe of Vegas. Yeah,
it's almost like if those casinos down there, if they want to like market it that way, I think that would be a thing that would definitely catch my attention if I was going there to play, not for work. I wouldn't want.
Yeah.
I have no desire to stay in one of these big hotels and and just go to a sports book and sit and watch. I mean, I'd rather have that old feel to me. I think it had a little magic to it, when it's definitely that magic is gone. Going back to the prop bets and stuff. Like, did you ever hear they have the integrity firm IC360 that picks up when these guys, there's a lot of bets on a certain thing that stands? That's how the two Guardians guys got caught. They actually have like a fucking firm watching these things.
Yeah, which I get. It makes sense, right? Let's be real. If there's any way to pick off people scamming, cheating, or fixing games, you do need someone to have the eyes on weird bets coming in or huge dollar amounts on random games. That's why I think these people are really, really just ignorant, because at the end of the day, they never get away with it. I mean, yes, they have, I'm sure, a few times in the history, right? But nowadays, it's no different than the mafia. Why do you think the mafia is pretty much non-existent? There's a camera in every corner. Everyone's got a camera. I mean, they couldn't get away with 90% of what they used to, so they're almost non-existent, right? Mm-hmm. Well, same thing for rigging a sports game. I'm not saying it's not going to continue to happen and things are going to happen, but I will say that they're going to get caught, because it's so easy to see $400,000 bet on a prop bet when the average prop bet is $20,000. And all of a sudden there's 400,000, and the guy, all they do is look at the tape and they see the guy's throwing the ball in the dirt. $400,000 is bet on a ball. It's like there's no easier sign than that. Of course, people are going to get smarter and more sophisticated about how they rig games and cheat, because that is just really ignorant. If you're going to cheat on something, I mean, the way I saw things happening, because I was a bookmaker 2 years ago, was tennis. Very hard to dictate. You have a guy playing tennis, he can hit a ball 4 feet out. You would never know he's doing it on purpose. And they're so good and so talented that they could rig a set or even one game and then come back and still win.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas these other sports is a lot harder. I mean, we know when Steph Curry is missing shots and he's airballing or barely making it, it's a little more obvious. UFC had a problem with it. And I actually, on that particular fight, I knew about that I heard it was fixed. So I bet on that fight and made money on it, to be honest, with another bookmaker. And then they end up coming back, and of course they threw him out. And the manager, he had a gambling debt, so that's why they did it. And these UFC fighters at these low levels don't make enough money. If they can make $500,000 or whatever the numbers, $100 grand, $200 grand, to go out there and look like they're trying, and then take a dive. I mean, to them, that's life changing, because they know. I'm just assuming what they're thinking. If I'm an average UFC fighter and I'm never going to be a title contender or even fight for the belt, it's kind of like, if I'm going to get $400 grand to go lose one fight. I mean, I kind of get the thing about I understand. It doesn't make it right. I'm not saying that's the right move, but I do get it. And that's where I think the problems are going to come in. These lower level kids in college football or basketball that can't make the NIL money big enough, or maybe won't never make it to the pros, but they can affect an outcome of a game. I think that's where you're going to see the problems come out more in the next 5 years, as opposed to an actual star throwing a game, which surprisingly we saw with a couple of Guardians pitchers. You had the Padres guy. He wasn't a star, but he ruined his career. Obviously, Jonte Porter sadly did what he did. And, there's some of these things coming out. But I do believe the star players are they're smart enough to realize that they're going to, they make enough money. Why even get involved in that? Yeah. But lower level guys, man, it's going to be hard for them to come.
No, and I agree. And then what I said when I said what I predicted of my 5-year thing, I guess I should have clarified it. I think the big names aren't going to be the ones. I think they're just going to be gambling. That doesn't mean they're going to be part of that prop. They're going to just be. They could be betting on any, whatever. But I just think it's going to show you that. I mean, look, it's like folklore with Michael Jordan and Charles Barkley on the golf course, and these guys, they have fuck you money. So they spend it, they gamble it. It doesn't mean anything if they lose $2 million in a weekend. It really doesn't, So
well, Joe, to go further on that, I mean, what people don't really think about, because I'm an athlete, and I'm not a professional athlete, but I was a very good athlete, and I'm very competitive. I imagine you are. And the reality is that competitive people that play sports are always going to challenge and try to do things that, or beat something that is hard to win at, which is why gambling is so prevalent to professional athletes or even college athletes, because they're already really good at what they're doing. Michael Jordan's a great example. He doesn't gamble for the money. I mean, clearly, he has more money than he can ever spend. He gambles because he's trying to beat something that is so hard to win, is so unbeatable, and he's a fierce competitor, which is why I love gambling. I want to, we play sports. If you play basketball and you're the best in the world, you think you could watch a game and you think you could figure it out on, even if you're gambling on other people, who's going to win the outcome of that game. And the fact that it's so hard makes you want to beat it even more. So competitive people always are going to challenge themselves, and they're already bored being the best in the world or whatever, or getting on a plane with their friends, and now they want to play cards because they're traveling all the time, these athletes. I've seen it. I traveled to the Lakers with my wife to 2 games with a casino, and I've seen it. I played in the American Century Championship in Tahoe 6 years in a row with Charles Barkley, Travis Kelce, Jim McMahon. I mean, I have pictures to prove it all. It's all on my website. And when I play with these guys, they all like to gamble. I mean, most of them. So that's why I say that most athletes gamble, because they're competitive.
I had the pleasure of meeting and hanging with Jim McMahon one night many years ago. He's a fucking funny motherfucker.
He is, man. You know what? That guy is an animal, man. He drank more alcohol in one round of golf than I've ever seen in my life. Like,
this was at a fucking Super Bowl party, so that's all you do. He's drinking, so he was, just, I loved him as a player, though, and I finally got him to meet him and get to know him for, one night. It was maybe an hour or two. The guy was a fucking home run. I loved him.
He was awesome. I enjoyed him.
Yeah, great fucking dude. Bringing it back a little bit to the props, and these guys don't know what they're doing. And some, I'm going to use a correlation with some of the steroid era with MLB. How, and also, like I said, I know Kirk Radomski, and it was in the Mitchell report, and Kirk also told me a lot of stuff in interviews that we've done, so this wasn't off the record stuff. A lot of these guys hired Kirk because they didn't know how to use. They would have steroids, but they didn't know what the fuck they were doing with them. So Kirk would put a protocol together for them of recycle, the week cycle, and stacking this and whatever. So it just goes to show you, like, I'll use Bartolo Colon as an example.
Okay.
He got caught with HGH. He was using, and from being in the shape you are, if you use HGH alone without stacking with testosterone, it's not going to do shit for your fucking muscles, and it might help you a little healing. Like Pettit said, he used it for the healing of the elbow. It might do a little something for that. But Big Sexy was using it for a gain, for an advantage in the physical type of thing, so he can throw harder maybe. He had no idea what he was doing. So that's why I think a lot of these guys that are going to get caught up in this thing don't understand it. They never, especially some of these guys that are from third world countries, they never had a pot to piss in. Now all of a sudden they got all this fucking money in their contract, and their friends are gambling. So even if they're not gambling anything that's going to get them in trouble, they don't know what they're doing, so they're going to be sloppy with it, and it's going to come out, and you're starting to see it trickling out a little bit with this leave for investigation purposes. So I think that's where it's going to start, but eventually it's going to come to a head, and I think that they're going to regret making these things legal. I think. Yeah,
I mean, you might be right. It's the one thing you're not mentioning, because we haven't gone there yet, that I think is the biggest issue is the current epidemic that is being done from a 18 to a 25-year-old kid who now is exposed to LeBron James, Kevin Hart, and all these amazing mentors that they all look up to, who are on commercials saying DraftKings, FanDuel, etc. And you're feeding them that gambling is good, and of course, gambling can be fine for people who are controlled and don't have a gambling problem or addiction. But for a young kid who's learning that gambling, which wasn't in our face when I was a kid at all. I mean, I was into it. You were into it, but that was by our choice. It wasn't on TV every 5 minutes or every 2 seconds. No. I mean, my son is 4 years old. When I put on a game, he's learning about baseball or whatever. All he's seeing at 4 years old is DraftKings, FanDuel. And he doesn't even understand what it is yet, but it's being peppered into his head. So fast forward to when he's 16, 17, every one of his friends are going to be gambling, and he's going to want to gamble, even though they're not even legal yet. It's happening now because I have a 22-year-old daughter, and all her friends that are males gamble. Some of the girls probably don't, but males. My 26-year-old daughter, her boyfriend and all their friends gamble every day, all day long. And I'm telling you, when you're young, you know this, you don't make as much money as when you're older. So if you're a 23-year-old kid and you lose, let's just say, $200 a week, it's $800 a month. Doesn't sound like a lot of money, but it is to a 22 or 23-year-old kid. Then fast forward, when he's 30, when he has his first child and he's married and he works at a home loan company and he makes $80,000 a year or whatever it is, and now that $800 a month is now $8,000, and it's ruining his life and his marriage, and his mortgage is not being paid, and he's lost everything. That's going to happen more in the next 5 years than you've ever seen in your life, because it's just a pandemic, or epidemic, I should say, that's happening right now that we don't really talk about or see, because gambling's only been legal since 18. So it's like not affecting some of these problems as much as people realize.
It's still in its infancy. Obviously, it's only been a few years, and now some athletes are getting caught up in it and all of this stuff. And it's like if they really give a shit about the person, they want the person to get fucking hooked to it because it's a business. And being as a bookie, you've said it in other things. Why you're giving guys credit? Why? Because it's a fucking business. It's easier to make the money.
Of course.
And you're not breaking their fucking legs, you know?
No.
Like you had the guy where you went to his house and he pulled the piece on you. You knew he was full of shit. He didn't have the balls to do anything. You called his bluff and you ended up breaking even. And sometimes you had to eat a couple of bucks.
Your loss. Yeah.
You broke even with the guy on what he had hit you for the week before, and you walk away. So they don't give a shit about. They'll take your fucking your house if you can't pay your credit card, you're paying all this, if you're behind in money, your car, your house, whatever. You can get all of this shit, collection agencies, but it's legal for them to do it, and it all stems from how much are they spending on these stupid fucking apps. Like you said, that in between games, now it's, minus 3.5,
Yes.
The first 5 is, and it's like every little nook and cranny of a ball game now has some kind of number attached to it when it comes to gambling. And it used to be, to me, it used to just be like the guys that kind of knew what they were doing used to do it and didn't really, get themselves in too deep. Outside, obviously, there's degenerates and guys that fuck up and they have to deal with the consequences. But for the most part, when you're doing like little stupid things like that, you're just dealing with people that know what they're doing. They're putting a couple of $100 down. They could lose it and not lose their fucking apartment pay and all of that.
Sure.
But to me, now what they're doing is, how many of these kids are using their parents' credit card and they don't even know?
Of course they are. Yeah, no question. And then, how many of them start stealing or doing things, to feed their addiction? I mean, listen, I'm as guilty as DraftKings and FanDuel. I was running a business where people would lose money to me. I accepted it in any way, form, or fashion. So I don't want to act like I'm higher than thou. But the difference is I'm going to prison for it. They're not. So, at least I could be real about it. I made money off people's losing or even sometimes gambling addiction. I own that. I'm not an angel, and I don't claim to be, but I'm literally going to prison for the very same thing that DraftKings and FanDuel are paying LeBron James to be on TV and say, hey, come bet with me. At least I own it. Like, now I'm in a position where I can't do it anymore. I'm no longer a bookmaker. And thank God it's pushing me into a direction of doing something where I don't have to gain off of somebody losing. I'm going to do something where the person on the other side of the fence doing business with me is winning. And that's motivating, inspiring, helping people, and obviously writing my book and trying to be honest, I think gambling is great for people who can control it, have fun. That's what it's for. You go to Vegas, you have a good time, you don't hurt yourself, you come home, you live your life. Of course, the other downside of that is people create addictions and it ruins their life. And I understand that. And I would love to help somebody to avoid that. And the people who use gambling correctly should continue to, because that's no difference in alcohol, right? Like, people, I drink alcohol. I don't have a problem with alcohol, but I watched my dad die from it. He drank 40 beers a day, So that's a problem for him. It's not a problem for me. So at the end of the day, we all have to look in the mirror and we have to be big boys and put on our big boy pants and say, hey, I make the decisions of what I put in my body or how I spend my money or what I do. And we can't blame other people, including DraftKings or FanDuel or Budweiser or Coors Light. You got to look in the mirror and say, I got a problem and I got to either fix it or go down swinging and deal with it. That's the way I look at life. So.
Yep, definitely. Like I said at the beginning of the show, you got yourself on a whole bunch of different things, and I really appreciate you coming on small platforms such as ours. You're not just going on, the big boys, the Joe Rogan type of places. You've been all over the place, and that's much appreciated by me, and I'm sure those other podcast hosts. You are going and surrendering on October 10th. You're facing a year and a day. Hopefully it'll be a lot less than that. You're probably going to get a lot less, but at max it's a year and a day.
Right.
I'm not saying that's going to be easy. That's going to suck, but you'll be fine. You'll get through it. It'll be done. What is your plan the day you come home? What's Matt Bauer going to do to earn a living once you get out of this and it's all behind you?
Thank you for asking. Truth be told, the minute I was raided by the feds, I made a decision. I literally went right to work. I started writing my autobiography, and the reason I did that is I knew that was like a key component to maybe the next level of what I planned, which was motivational speaking, giving back and inspiring people and trying to clearly make money doing that at the same time. But, writing my book was very therapeutic because I've never wrote a book about my life story. And then you realize some of the accomplishments, all the things I've done. I mean, a lot of accomplishments, but some bad, some good. That's why I put all the bad in the book too. I've been broke. I've made so many mistakes where I put myself in a very bad predicament. But I had to be honest and authentic because I don't want to show just the private jets and all the glamour because that's all the good shit. But the bad stuff is really kind of what makes you enjoy the good stuff. And going to prison is part of the hard part, but I'm going to learn a lot in that process, and then I'm going to come out even stronger, and I'll use that to reset my mind and continue to grow my strength in my mindset. But the plan after that is I'm filming a documentary now, and I'm hoping to get a featured film. I have an offer currently for one. We haven't accepted it because I think I'm going to get more. And I would love to get somebody big, a Tom Hardy or a Ben Affleck, to play the role and make this a really good film, very similar to The Wolf of Wall Street with Leonardo DiCaprio. I mean, that helped Jordan Belfort, and I'm not saying I'm a better person than him, but I don't have any victims. I didn't harm people. He still owes $100 million to the government, and he's finding his way. Good for him. I plan on doing something similar, but maybe in a different way. And that's kind of my plan. Whatever I do, I'll be successful, and I know that because I've done it over and over again in all these different fields and different ways. It's a little more challenging having 3 felonies and being 50 and a father of 5, but I'll figure that out. And that's life. You deal with the curveballs, and I don't make excuses. I could easily say, poor me, it's not fair. I got 3 felonies. I can't get a license. I'm never going to figure it out. I can go do drugs. I can become a drunk. That's the message I'm definitely not going to ever send anyone, including my children. I'm going to show them and the world that you get knocked down, you get up, you swing harder, you keep getting up. You can't fight a fight. You just keep going until you win, and that's the way I've always lived.
Yeah, and the thing that's I can tell is that you have a good attitude going into jail. You're not going in there with a woe is me kind of attitude. You're going in there saying, all right, I know what I did. I know what I got to do. And you'll have a lot of alone time there where you can really use that towards planning for this new career. And that's pretty cool. That's awesome how you as soon as that first fucking domino fell, you started working right away. And the book that you're talking about, obviously, I can't wait to get this. Recalibrate. I can't wait to read it. Recalibrate. It's on Amazon. Self-published.
Yeah, Joe. Nobody owns any of my rights. I made sure of that. I did not want. I wanted to control my own destiny because at the end of the day, there's one thing I know. I'm abnormal. Nobody can look at me and say you're normal. I'm the furthest from that. But I don't want to be normal. I didn't bet $4.6 million on a football game because I'm normal. I didn't go to a bohemian prison with my wife because I'm normal. I didn't get 3 felonies because I'm normal, right? So, at the end of the day, good, bad, and indifferent, I don't want to be normal. I never want to be that way. I want to do things and have a vision that is completely different than everybody else. Sometimes it's bad, sometimes it's good. But for me, you will not see, and go back and look at anyone who's kind of been in trouble, never do they put themselves out there like I have. I've been from day one, I've been, telling the truth about to the public and the world what's going on in my head, how shitty this day is, how I'm dealing with it. And my book, I wrote because I didn't wait till after. Most people write a book when they get out of prison or while they're in there. Mine's done. I'm going into prison with a whole different outlook, right? Now it's like I built this tiny little brand, and now I'm just going to put the fertilizer on it and let it grow. And by the time I come out of prison, it should be bigger and better. I mean, that's my plan. And if it isn't, then I'll keep figuring it out and I'll water it in a different way. But I believe very confidently that what I'm doing and what I've done is all going to pay off for me. And I decided I can't make money illegally, so how do I do it legally? Some people are like, oh, you can't profit off your crime. And some of these things they say, I'm like, well, I just paid the government the restitution. I'm paying all my tax money. What do you expect me to do? Do you want me to go work at Walmart and stock shelves? I mean, I'm a father of 5 children. Or do you at least appreciate that I'm willing to put myself out there and take more risk legally and pay the government their taxes? You should be praising me for trying that, as opposed to putting me down or wanting me to just bury my head in the sand. I hate when people do that. I understand that I did something wrong, but I have a right to make it right, So I hate when people say, "Oh, he's a predatory criminal and you're a felon." Well, yeah, I am, and I own it. And if I do the time for my crime, well, isn't that what that's for? So
Exactly,
I hate that, and I want to shove it in their face.
I was really surprised to hear on one of your interviews saying all of these fucking trolls with their negative comments on your thing. Like I said before, if anything, you went out of your way to protect Ohtani's reputation. You went out of your way to make sure that, listen, you already got Ippei on my phone. We can't dance around that. You don't have Ohtani on my phone. I don't know nothing about Ohtani. We're talking about Ippei. Don't ask me about Ohtani. So what are these guys mad about?
Well, I know what they're mad about. They're mad that they're in a basement and they look in the mirror and they're 40 pounds overweight and they see my wife, who's gorgeous, and I'm the one who's sleeping with her and they're sleeping with themselves. They hate that I made more money in literally one football game they've made in their whole lifetime, and that's what they hate. They're mad that I had the balls to put myself out there and take risk in life. And some of them make comments when I go back and forth with them. Well, you'll be in prison. And I said, yeah, I will, and that's okay. I made some poor choices, and I'll deal with that. But you're in prison. You're in prison in your mind. I'm not. So you got to live with that. I look in the mirror. Yes, I made mistakes. Yeah, I'm not perfect, but I'm really happy with what I see. I'm okay with that.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. Let's do a little talk a little bit about fitness. You're into fitness, obviously. You're into taking care of yourself. You've used compounds. I've heard you talking on the other podcasts and stuff like that. Especially now that you're in your 50s. TRT is such an important thing for guys in our age group. People that don't understand it, that try to, say listen, if you're 20 years old and